everyone, and welcome back to the Color Spotlight series. In the last episode, we took a look at a rather complex hue that could be derived from a few different pigments, and today is somewhat similar. We are going to be taking a look at Quinacridone Magenta today, which is primarily made from PR122, but can also be made from PR202. These two pigments are relatively consistent in hue across different brands, with PR202 being a bit darker and less intense than its PR122 cousin. They are both a bit cooler than quinacridone rose pigments in general, but they fill a similar role on the palette. I do want to note that PR122 is also used in the production of opera rose pigments, where it is combined with a fluorescent dye to make a very vibrant, bright pink. But since we are already looking at two pigments today, we will not be looking at the opera varieties of PR122. Sorry, cat. So let's go ahead and start off with the more common of these two pigments. PR122 is a transparent to semi-transparent, intense, cool red. Although the ASTM rates PR122 as only fair in light fastness, independent light fastness tests from various brands, as well as the light fastness testing on handprint.com, show it to be a pretty solid pigment in its pure form, aside from the use in the fluorescent opera colors. It is generally considered to be the strongest red-violet pigment in watercolors. It has a moderate drying shift, which means it lightens in value and saturation as it dries, but overall the shifts that this pigment undergoes varies a lot from brand to brand. PR202 is a much less common pigment for Quinacridone Magenta, really only gaining popularity in recent years as far as I can tell. At the time that handprint.com added it to their site, Daniel Smith was the only commercial source of this pigment in watercolors, but I now have samples from both Schmincke and Mission Gold as well. PR202 is the same general hue as PR122, but it is slightly darker and less intense in its overall tone. However, like PR122, it is both light fast and transparent. Handprint also regards both pigments as highly staining, but in my experience on cellulose papers, that's not really the case with either of the pigments, and in fact PR202 actually had an issue with the glazing that you'll see in a little bit due to the fact that it tried to lift off of the paper. This is not an issue on cotton paper, but I just wanted to let all of you guys know my experiences with it. Now moving on to our brand comparison, in this first row of colors I have three samples of PR202. They are Mission Gold, Schmincke, and Daniel Smith. Mission Gold's is the deepest and reddest of the bunch, meaning it leans further away from the violet tones. Daniel Smith's is fairly similar in hue, but it does glaze significantly better. Schmincke's is a light and crisp version of this color, and it glazes really, really well, but it is noticeably less intense than the other two versions. I have far more samples of PR122, ranging from Lucas's incredibly weak version of this color to Quar's punch-you-in-the-face vibrant version. Pretty much every other version in between are fairly comparable, and I suspect that Daniel Smith's would be as well, although I don't have any of those on swatch cards. I do feel the need to point out one sample in particular here, and I try not to be too negative, but a very kind viewer sent me a Blick Artists paint to try out. This is the only color that I have from Blick Artists, so I don't know if this is throughout their paint. I don't know if it's a specific interaction with the Arches paper, but I tried 3 different times to swatch out this color, and each time it has a really weird texture to it. It's not granulation, this color doesn't granulate, but it is just something seems to be off with the way that this pigment is adhering to the paper. My favorite version of PR122 prior to filming this video was Quar's absolutely stunningly vibrant version, but while I was filming this video, I did note a really interesting interaction with the cellulose paper. It has a really strange shelving characteristic to it that I've generally only seen in handmade paints before. It does not have this texture when you apply it to cotton paper, so if you are going to use this one, I would recommend a higher quality cotton paper. For now, for mixing these swatches and in my painting demonstration, instead of Quar's version, I will be using White Knight's, what they call Quinacridone Rose, but it's made from PR122 and it's just named a little bit incorrectly. So up first, we have Quinacridone Gold. In my previous color spotlight videos for this run, I opted to use PY150 instead of P049 since I know Quinacridone Gold is no longer available in its original form. However, I could not resist using it for this one. If you don't have the original Quinacridone Gold, you can still use one of the other hues that is widely available, and I'm sure you'll get similar results, but this combo produces some incredibly stunning oranges that I really wanted to show off. This might stump some of us who have learned throughout color theory that cool reds generally don't make the best oranges because there's blue in that red and that counteracts the yellows and the oranges and it gets a little murky or muddy. But I suppose that the Quin Gold is a little bit closer to orange than it is to a green. But whatever its magical secret is, it produces stunning bright reds and intensely rich oranges with the Quinacridone Magenta that I would highly, highly recommend exploring. So has anyone ever heard of Raw Umber Violet? It's a gorgeous specialty mix that is a color that you can make at home using a cool PV19 with a raw umber, and it makes some gorgeous, lovely, rich purpley browns. And luckily for this color spotlight, PR122 has the same trick up its sleeve. I absolutely love this combination, and I really need to remember to use it more often in my paintings. The opposite of a cool red would be a warm green. So here in this next row, I'm using sap green as this mixer. However, because sap green is light in value, it will never make dark grays or blacks, but instead we get some really beautiful rich browns that are kind of in the middle of its mixing range. However, if you add just a tiny bit of magenta to the sap green, we can also get some nice olive colors, which can be expected from this combination if you're using other similar hues as well. Here I'm using Daniel Smith's sap green, but any color in this range should yield similar results, though you guys all know that I think this is the best one. The fourth color is Pearline Green, and for once I actually think that the video footage picked it up a lot better than you'll see later in the scan. This dark green, when combined with the magenta, makes some really gorgeous moody purples, and the closer we get to the green, the deeper it becomes, eventually forming a rich, cool black. Again, that's going to be harder to see on the scanned still that I show you at the end, but here in the video you can see it pretty nicely. Next up is Phthalo Turquoise, and I am going to be using Daniel Smith's in this video since I was using my main palette, but the single pigment version of PB16 or any other similar hue will yield similar results. I love the rich purples that can be made with this combination when using more of the magenta, and it produces some really interesting mid-range blues when you move it closer to the Phthalo Turquoise side of things. Finally, we have good old ultramarine. PR122's claim to fame is its vibrancy, which translates incredibly well into producing some of the most vibrant mixed purples we could ever hope for. Adding just a touch of the ultramarine will get you some delicious dark pinky violet colors, while adding a bit more of that ultramarine will move you into the bright, vibrant purple range. And of course, when you add a lot more of the ultramarine, you can get a lot cooler purples if that is your jam. I'm using Sennelier's Ultramarine Deep here, and that variety does not have as much granulation as there could be with some other varieties of this combination, but if you use a more granulating color, you would get a more granular effect with your purple mixes. At the very bottom of this page, just to finish things off, I'm going to be showing you a wet and wet flow, which is actually pretty low for this White Nights version. I'm not sure how all of the other PR122s compare. For instance, the Quartz just explodes and blossoms all over the page, but that's what Quartz does. But this White Night one didn't move very much at all. I also show you a glaze, the liftability, which as I mentioned before, is pretty good on the cellulose paper, but more staining on cotton paper, and finally softening off some edges. Then I have a scan to show you of the PR202 mixed with the same colors for comparison. I feel like PR202 is a prettier color on its own, but overall I felt really underwhelmed by the mixes it made, especially following PR122. If the vibrancy of PR122 is too much for your palette, then this would be a good secondary option. Even though the cooler mixes are adequate though, I do feel like the warmer mixes suffer quite a bit. The Quinacridone Gold, the Raw Umber, and the Sap Green just didn't produce as effective of mixes, and you can really see the difference in that first row of oranges. I just feel like the one made from PR202 just feels dark and heavy by comparison. Now it is time to move on to the demo painting. I am so glad to hear that you all liked my illustrative vipercorn in the cobalt teal episode, but I have to admit I was so excited to be working on this piece this week back in my usual style. Moving through this series, I decided that I wanted to take inspiration from the colors that I was highlighting in the color spotlight when picking my subjects. So I went out in search of pink animals for this video, which primarily turned up a lot of birds. I did sketches of numerous species, including flamingos, spoonbills, an adorable pink robin that I had no idea even existed, and cockatoos. I really loved the pink robin, but I felt like doing that species would lead me down a more illustrative road once again, and my patrons left me feedback letting me know that they really liked the cockatoo, so I decided to pursue that one. Once I decided that I wanted to do a cockatoo, I pulled inspiration from several different species, first gravitating towards the rose-breasted cockatoos, which have these really bright pink chests, but their wings are a little bit dull, as are their faces. My patrons saw this sketch and they really liked it, but I wasn't quite sure that I liked it from an artistic perspective or in showing off this color to its full potential. Then I found a super cute reference of a salmon-crested cockatoo, which you might have seen in my last video from my airplane sketches when I went to Austin. And the salmon-crested cockatoo has an incredibly sweet face, but its crest wasn't quite what I was looking for this painting. So then I turned to a third species and my favorite cockatoo species, which is the sulfur-crested cockatoo. It has that perfect fanned crest, and I was able to combine the two different species to come up with this sketch that you are watching today. I added a horn to make it a you need to. The other way doesn't work, and we tucked it right into its crest, and it's kind of a subtle add to this painting, which I really like that aspect of. Ultimately, this is a color spotlight, and we really want to showcase this color, but Quinacridone Magenta can be super intense and really intimidating in its full strength form. However, if we take a moment to dial it back, add a little bit more water, we can get a lot of lovely pinks and a wide array of mixing colors. The bulk of the portrait was done with extremely watered down Quinacridone Magenta with maybe a teeny tiny bit of indanthrene blue. I wanted to build up the color in layers rather than putting it all down at once, because by layering it, it would help with the feather texture of the cockatoo. I did use white nights entirely for this painting, so the other two colors that I used in addition to Quinacridone Magenta were the indanthrene blue to make the purples for the crest and the irises of the eyes, and their emerald green, which is really just phthalo green for all of the grays on the beak and the horn. So now it's time for you to tell me your favorite way to use Quinacridone Magenta. Do you like to use it full strength? Do you like to use it watered down as a pink? Or do you like to use it in mixes, or all of the above? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. I do want to give a quick shout out to my patrons who helped me pick out the cockatoo to pursue for this video, because I'm extremely happy with the way that this majestic bird turned out, and I feel like I'm really back on the right track with this series. If you are interested in owning the original, he can be found in my Etsy shop along with prints as well. And as always, I just want to thank you guys all for watching. Please consider giving this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed the content, to subscribe and hit the bell icon if you'd like to join us again for the next one, and an extra special thanks to my patrons for making this video possible. I will see you all in the next video, and until then, happy painting.